Welcome to Knowledgeable Aging. I'm your host, Jason Kotar. Joining us today to talk about aging in place, the benefits of a mobile physician is Dr. Kaishauna Guidry. Dr. Guidry is a mobile physician based in Southern California. Today, she serves patients and families in their homes as a hospice and palliative care medical director in her private mobile physician practice, Morning Dove Medical. She has a very popular podcast called At the Heart of Healthcare with Dr. G. Dr. Guidry is a strong healthcare advocate and mentor who is passionate about combating healthcare disparities across medical specialties and providing strategies of success for aspiring physicians. How are you doing today, Dr. Guidry?
I'm good. Good morning. We got a little time zone difference, but coffee makes it good.
Very good. Well, before we get started, Dr. Guidry, for those that are joining us for the live webinar, if you have any questions, you'll see a toolbox or tool panel over on the right-hand side. Time permitting, we will do everything in our power. Type your questions into that tool panel, please. So Dr. Guidry, I want to turn it over to you. Aging in place, the benefits of a mobile physician.
Well, thank you for having me, Jason. I was so happy that you reached out to me on LinkedIn. And I first want to just acknowledge the great work you're doing for the senior community. I also feel called to this field because it's such a neglected field, for our seniors, those who are aging. You shared the story with me about how you dealt with a loved one and how that built this passion project. So thank you for doing all this work. So here we are talking about me and Morning Dove Medical, which was birthed out of the work that I do. So we can go ahead and just hop into these few slides for those who want to have something to look at here. But I wanted to just talk about aging in place. I recently led a bereavement group and spoke to some seniors about living in an assisted living and how that is. And they mentioned some friends who weren't ready to move there. So anyway, just having these conversations. I'm privileged to have many conversations with our senior population in my work. So I try to organize the wisdom that they give me. So aging in place, we're going to talk about what that means. We're going to talk about where is home. We're going to talk about what the mobile physician means. And we're going to talk about pathways of care. That's a little paradigm I put together to help with seniors as their needs change. And then we're going to talk about time being our most precious commodity. So first of all, aging in place, what does that mean? So our senior population, I kind of get weird about seniors, elderly, all these words and labels. Sometimes I call them the mature people. So aging in place, I focus on seniors in the late stages of life. I don't always like to use end of life because again, those bring feelings of, I don't have meaning, I don't have value. And in my practice, in my work, I honor the value of the seniors that I serve. Their lives have value, their contributions to the world matters. So I say the late stages of life. So we have these other words that we kind of throw around. So that's what I mean by aging in place. These folks, they're retired from work, and some of them are retired from driving, and they rely on family members to chauffeur them around, or some need transportation from their insurance companies, or even Uber has some programs. So they're retired from that. Some have limited mobility and they use DME, walkers, wheelchairs, scooters to get around because the body is kind of stiffening up. And so they need these tools to help them get around safely. So for these folks, it can be burdensome to get to appointments, getting out of the house, getting into the car, getting out of the car, getting into the building. All these are actually opportunities to fall, which is very scary for me. And I have many stories that I've heard of this. So for folks like this, I created Morning Dove Medical to go to them. And I'm not the only mobile practice. We'll talk about that later.
I was wondering if you can explain what DME is.
Durable medical equipment. These are things that our folks who are aging use, the tools that they use to get around safely or to help them be more comfortable. Sometimes there's bathroom modifications, you know, the toilet seat being lifted up, the shower modification. So we call that durable medical equipment. So thank you for asking. So let's get back to what home means. So homebound patients, my practice is focused on homebound patients. So where is home? Jason, I know you asked how can assisted living outside the home be home, but actually home is wherever our aging person is. And so their home is an assisted living or independent living. It's a memory care for those who are uh, have dementia. It's a boarding care, some beautiful homes that house, you know, a lower number of people who require caregivers around the clock. And I put their select home environments because, again, I focus on a limited population of folks. So those who cannot get into the car, those who cannot get out the house and go to an appointment. So that's what select home environments means. In late stages of life, age is more than a number. So I typically serve octogenarians and centenarians. My oldest patient was 104 and she gets around her house in that scooter. And it's always an honor to visit with her. She actually went on hospice, graduated from hospice, and she's still going. So I have the privilege of seeing folks like that. But sometimes people have issues where they're a little more debilitated earlier in age. So I have some 60-year-olds or 70-year-olds. So mostly not as mobile. Is who I serve. So like I mentioned earlier, we have so much to learn from their lives. And then we bring the healthcare services them. I think we already covered these things. And so as I mentioned on the last bullet point there, some folks have had strokes. And so they're bed bound, or I had a recent patient who was in their early 30s, gunshot wound, and so they're in a position, or someone with cerebral palsy. They may be homebound now, and it's been difficult to get to appointments. So those are the kind of patients that I serve, and I consider in the late stages of life for my practice in particular. And they benefit from the mobile physician. Next. So a mobile physician, my office is my automobile and I see them in their home. So there's many mobile practices for those who are not as familiar with computers. They can have a family member Google mobile physician and many will pop up. This is not something new that I created. I just created a niche practice in Morning Dove Medical that was birthed out of my 9-to-5 work in community palliative care and hospice. So that's where that came from. But you asked about insurances accepted and how that's covered. Everyone is different. My practice is concierge based, cash based. Some take Medicare only. Others, they may have contracts with various insurances. So and for me, as I mentioned, Morning Dove Medical became a support for the hospice graduates who needed a doctor and folks in that category. So mine's a little bit different, but it varies. So other folks that may help a mobile physician in their practice could be the facility staff for sure. We rely on them because they're the eyes and ears on the aging person at the facility. So they call, they fax. When I go in there, they say, "Hey, Dr. G, hey, Dr. Guidry, this patient's been waking up all night. You know, this resident, they call them residents. They were agitated last night. We think they may have, a urinary tract infection. Could we do this? So we rely on them. The med techs that are there, they pass the meds. The nurses there, they help with the telemedicine visits, and even the receptionist. Everyone there takes a part in the care of the senior at these facilities, and they do a great job. So we also have, there's mobile radiology companies, there's mobile phlebotomists, home healthcare agencies are vital also. A lot of facilities actually have a home health housed within, well, I should say a physical therapy agency housed within the facility so that they can help keep the residents mobile. For me in particular, I work closely with the home health agency who may be seeing the patient more regularly, and the skilled nurses can do labs, and kind of be eyes and ears, let me know when the medications have run out, and things of that nature. And then the hospice agency. So one of the benefits we'll get to of having a mobile physician is me being able to see as things change in the trajectory of an illness. So I have a new person that I saw last week, for instance. They're in the early stages of dementia, and the family has made the decision to move them into an assisted living. So as I follow them, there'll come a point when they may benefit from staying in a memory care, have a little bit closer enclosed environment, and still be able to enjoy activities. And then, as the dementia progresses to the end stages, when folks become bedbound, disinterested in food, that's when it may be time for hospice. And so that's something that a mobile physician would know. There's no way for a person in a memory care to get in and out of appointments. They need the doctor to come and see them and keep them in their safe environment where they can enjoy the activities of the assisted living, the puzzles, the movies, and all the things that they do there. It's really actually nice. So um, continuity of care. So that is the number one benefit of a mobile physician, because I've met many people who say, oh, I've been with my doctor for 30 years, and it's very difficult for them to see someone else. And I've been blessed to be able to gain rapport with folks, and they say, okay, let's do it, because they understand that they need someone to, they need to benefit from the convenience of having someone come to them, and someone who understands what they're going through, to take them to the 10, maybe 20 years that they have left in their life. And so that's the benefit when you can see them in place. So as I mentioned, I'm able to observe the fluctuations in health, and have an efficient response um, to that person, instead of them waiting 3 months for their follow-up appointment or 6 months for a follow-up appointment in the traditional sense of doctor visits. I had someone who, again, dementia is a common thing that I encounter. So I had a caregiver who was taking care of her mother, and she had a doctor's appointment. They increased the Seroquel. It's a medication we use for anxiety and agitation, but the mother just wouldn't sleep. So then she took her to the emergency room the next day. Then she took her back to the doctor. Again, that's too much. This person needs a mobile physician. We can help with the overuse of the emergency room. We can kind of get things stabilized a little bit quicker by seeing them in their home environment as well. We mentioned a couple minutes ago the Pathways of Care program. Again, that's something that I created to help easily get patients from home health to hospice when they decline, if they have a terminal condition, get them from hospice to home health if they graduate from hospice and their terminal condition is no longer symptomatic. And then we have those palliative care patients who have various chronic conditions. A lot of them, they may get worse, or they're afraid to go to hospice. A lot of folks are scared of the H word. And so they say, oh, okay, I'll do palliative care, when they've gone through, when they failed lines of chemo and they're still trying to get another consult, a third opinion, fourth opinion, they go on palliative care. But those are great patients too, because during that time we can educate them, and they end up understanding that hospice is the best place for them so that they can be comfortable. So we already talked about the graduates of hospice and those being bed bound. And again, some of them can't go back to the doctor. Some can, but most cannot. I should ask, do you have any questions to this point before we go to the next slide?
We've actually got quite a few questions. I'm going to let you finish up, Dr.
Okay.
Guidry, because we got quite a
Okay.
few questions that are already starting to come in.
Okay. Okay. I think we just have one more slide. I just had a little
Yep.
bit. So time.
We,
How comprehensive can someone be in 10 or 15 minutes? Believe it or not, I have friends who are in medicine who have 10 minutes to be with a patient. I can't do that. I think I came into medicine too old, so I wouldn't be able to keep up. But I like to spend time with people and sit down and listen to them. And there's no way that can be done in 10 to 15 minutes. So the major benefit also of a mobile physician is the time we have to spend with you in your home environment, in your natural habitat, if you will. I have time to address all the healthcare needs, and I typically allot an hour to sit there, check in with people, look at medications and things of that nature. Sorry for the typo there. I'm available for family meetings, for dynamic advanced care planning. Again, as I mentioned, observing changes as they come along as a mobile physician. Sometimes I need to pull a daughter, a son to the side and say, hey, should we consider something? Should we consider hospice? Or let's, if we have I had a patient who had ALS, and so I spoke with the spouse about, okay, let's put an emergency plan together so that when the time comes, if it's 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 years, we don't want to be in a panic. So let's do some advanced care planning. So that's that. And then lastly, context. As I mentioned, we're seeing folks in their natural habitat. So we have visibility of the environmental effects on their health. The stressors that they may encounter that may be worsening their condition. Sometimes there's families fighting or in conflict, and that affects the the parent, the senior, who's managing that. And in medicine, we've seen social determinants of health, SDOH, it's a hot topic, become a part of the forefront of things in healthcare. So it's super important to know what's really going on with your patient. And so that's what I get to address.
first question is
Thank you.
talking about the mobile physician. How many patients does a mobile physician usually see at one time?
It varies. For me, I keep my practice small because my 9 to 5 is actually in hospice. And so I like to focus on a small number of patients at once so that I can give them the attention they need. So I may have 10 at one time, and I'm going to go with them for the full journey. But I know folks who see 10 at one facility at once. They round at five different facilities in a day, and kind of round like that. I think they're doing more of the primary care, traditional sense of the word, but Morning Dove Medical, I'm focused on the late stages of life. I'm focused on those pre-palliative hospice graduates, a special, unique sector of folks.
It, that was another one of the questions that we had. Dr. Guidry was asking about how does an individual or a family determine the right type of mobile physician for their loved one? I assume, as you said, there's multiple disciplines within a mobile physician. So how do they go about finding the right one for their loved one?
Well, let's say they move their loved one into an assisted living or independent living. They can ask them who serves that particular facility, and they can talk to them on the phone, do a little bit of internet research. Um, just use the resources that you have. I'm not sure if that person is looking for someone to come into their house home, um, but I would imagine that word of mouth would be the best thing. Maybe they can speak to a senior sitter center nearby, um, and word gets around.
Yeah. With the increase in telemedicine, how has that impacted the mobile physician?
It's actually been wonderful. You know, the pandemic exposed many of our weak points in the healthcare system. However, telemedicine being brought to the forefront has allowed um, people who were unable to leave the house to get care in their home. Um, and being we were able to see more people at once. If you can imagine, I'm driving here and there, but I can see people on a video screen more efficiently, um, with the telemedicine. That example I mentioned earlier about the patient with dementia who had various symptoms, you know, if I saw them on a Thursday, for instance, and if they, you know, have issues on a Saturday night, I can pop on the video for the facility and kind of do a visit and see what's going on, change the medication, fax it in on my phone, and it's done. It's easy. What's easy for folks who, you know, I'm really good with my faxing and all that stuff from my phone, so it's really easy to do.
Yeah. Another question has come in about the time. I know you had mentioned that, with sometimes with certain physicians, you get a limited amount of time. Um, let's just use your practice as an example. Is there a time, an allotted amount of time that is spent? Is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour? Or does it vary based off of where your patient is at that time?
So I don't actually turn on a timer, but I allot an hour. However, last week when I met with someone, this person had difficulty hearing. You know, he wanted to read. You know, some of the things that I was filling out for his facility. Um, we went through the post form. I spoke to his caregiver. I ended up calling the hospice that he was on to get some information. So I'm not sure how long I was there, but I know it wasn't an hour. And that's the benefit of it. I'm not. No one's knocking on the door to tell me, "Hey, your next patient's in the other room." I can do whatever needs to be done there. Um, and get it accomplished. So I say an hour, but things happen.
Yeah. Are there common misconceptions about the mobile physician that people should know about?
Hmm. I'm not sure about that. I don't. I haven't heard any.
I mean,
I
I
don't want
guess,
them to think that we're not doctors. We have the same training. You see my graduate, my diploma up there.
right.
You can't practice medicine in the United States without, you know, having the appropriate credentials and licensing and things of that nature. And you can easily um, look on the medical board for the doctors that you encounter. Um, yeah.
Now, as far as the continuum of care, as they, let's just say you're seeing an individual when they're 60, is it typical for a mobile physician to be able to see them throughout their lifespan, or sometimes do they need to see a different mobile physician, if you will, as they age?
Yeah. So for someone 60, I'm assuming that they're managing various conditions.
Mm,
And for me, that probably wouldn't be a patient that I'd see, but if they were
okay.
seeing another local practice I'm familiar with, they're doing the cardiology consults, they're doing all the things that they would need to do to manage the conditions that they're dealing with. Um, yeah, so definitely I was with another group a couple years ago, and I ordered a mammogram for one of the patients. But again, that was again a broad population of folks that they were serving. I prefer to serve those at the late stages of life. because that's very, very neglected in our society.
Somebody asked Dr. Guidry about hospice. I think you had mentioned the H word. Why is there so much apprehension about hospice?
Well, I think in history, again, please go listen to Dr. G at the Heart of Healthcare. That first episode talks about the history of hospice and how it came along
Mm,
uh, from Europe to our country during the AIDS epidemic, and folks were dying so fast. So it's gotten a stigma over the years. People, even doctors, don't talk about it. Some doctors feel like they're giving up on their patient, or they failed in treating their patient. Um, People in our society have seen people go on hospice and they think, oh, that's when you're gonna die. Again, it's not. You're not supposed to wait until the last three breaths to get the hospice consult. The hospice benefit with Medicare is supposed to be 6 months. Well, it is 6 months. And so ideally, you would want to refer someone. Cancer is very common. Let's say they've tried the chemo and they get new imaging and the chemo has advanced. And I mean, I'm sorry, the cancer has advanced, the tumor has increased, and or it has metastasized, and they decide, I'm not doing this again, let's go on hospice. Or the chemo has weakened them and they decide they don't want to continue to weaken, they'd rather stay where they are and let the disease take its course. Ideally, you'd want one of those folks, not someone who's gotten an infection, sepsis, to the ICU, and then finally they do it, and it's just, we're happy to take care of people. um, we've done it. But ideally, you want to be able to get the health care earlier so that the family and everything can just kind of be a little bit smoother.
yeah. Last question, Dr. Guidry, and this has been wonderful. Can you talk about, from a medical perspective, the importance of advanced care planning?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you for that question. Our healthcare system is bursting at the seams. Um, Advanced care planning is just someone sharing their needs, their desires, I should say, their wishes with their family or their loved one or their friend or their doctor. And it allows everyone to follow through with those wishes, um, and respect them. A lot of people don't like to talk about advanced care planning because they think, oh, I don't want to think about that until it happens. But what it does is it puts an emotional burden on the family, because no one wants to play God. And I'm saying that in quotes because I've heard people say that. They don't want to feel like they're doing the wrong thing. And so it's better if you have a conversation. I've heard there's a website called the Conversation Project where you can use some tools with your family to talk about your end of life wishes. They call it estate planning for the heart. So your family knows your wishes. And so when that time comes, everything is great and everyone's at peace. And we're having a farewell, if you will, that's respectfully, and no one's dying alone in the hospital. That is my worst fear. Um, to when that happens, when people delay and when families are not able to make it to their loved one's bedside, or when someone's alone, I don't like to see it. I've seen it a lot in my training, and I always wish that they would have made the decision to get on hospice, uh, be at home, be at a facility, be surrounded by people who love them. So advanced care planning helps us with that.
That's wonderful stuff, Dr. Guidry. So how can people find you?
You can find me everywhere. So
That's for sure.
yeah, yeah, social media is fun. So I'm on Twitter, Dr. Mama K, DrMamakai. Dr. Mama K. I'm married mother of 3 grown adults, have a new grandchild. So that's why my handle is Dr. Mama K. Also at Mourning Dove Medical, and mourning as in mourning, the loss of something. MOUR, uh, MOURNINGDOVEMED, Morning Dove Med. On Instagram at Morning Dove Medical. On Facebook, you can find me Morning Dove Medical, and also LinkedIn. And then you can also follow me on LinkedIn under my name, Kaishauna Guidry, MD, HMDC, Hospice Medical Director Certified. So thank you for having me. This has been so, so wonderful. And feel free to send me any questions, anyone listening. I love to educate. I'm happy to organize family meetings if people need it. That's also a part of my practice. And so glad to help.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Dr. Guidry. It was a pleasure collaborating with you on this, a very important topic. As far as knowledgeable aging, you can go to our website, knowledgeableaging.com, see all of our upcoming and archived webinars. Go to YouTube, type in knowledgeable aging. I encourage you to subscribe. We do update that several times per month. If podcasts are your thing, you can find us on Apple Tunes, Spotify, etc. Till next time, I'm your host, Jason Kotar. This is Knowledgeable Aging.